This is Kat with Beadaholique, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make the summertime peyote bracelet kits. Now these are exclusive Beadaholique kits, and that means that you'll get all the supplies that you need to create these beautiful bracelets. So let's go over what you'll receive when you purchase one of our kits. For this design, you'll get a size 12 beading needle and you'll get a pack of 4. You'll get your appropriate clasp, your fire line beading thread, and your Miyuki delicas. Now you'll need to provide yourself a pair of scissors, or if you prefer, you can use a pair of snips or a thread zapper. So let's go over the beautiful designs that are part of this summer collection. The one I'm going to be doing here in the video is this really fun and very shimmery honeycomb bracelet. And I just love how the gold and amber really dances. You can also choose from our Miami, which is a very fun geometric pattern. And then we have the cherry blossom in either blue or white. So choose your favorite kit and get your supplies, and let's go ahead and get started. So I want to begin here by showing you exactly how to read the pattern that is going to come with your bracelet kit. Now we have guidelines here. It says start here, work down, continue here, and work down. So what's going to happen is we're going to pick up the first and second row, and actually I'm going to kind of point with my scissors here. We're going to be picking up that first and second row, which is the beads that I'm pointing to right there, and you kind of work your way all the way across. And then we're going to pick up our third row, which is the one right below the first row, and we're going to weave through to pick up every other bead, as you'll see. So I'm going to show you exactly how to do that, but I just kind of wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of your pattern before we go ahead and get started. In case you're using a different pattern here, you can use the same video for any of the designs. It is the very same technique, just follow along with your pattern. All right, I'm going to cut off a length of fire line and cut off a length that you're comfortable working with. I will show you how to cut off and add new thread as we work. So just go ahead and start with a length that you're comfortable with. And simply thread your needle. There we go. And now I'm going to choose a stopper bead. And you can use one of the beads that comes with your kit, or you can use a completely different style as well. So I'm just going to pick up one of my amber beads here, slide it down, and I'm going to leave a tail. Especially because I'm starting here, I want to leave enough of a tail so that I can add my clasp. So I recommend at least a foot long to help tie off your clasp later. So just go back through, and what's going to happen is you're going to catch that bead and it'll be nice and secure on your thread. So I'm just going to scooch my needle down just a little bit and give myself a little bit more room. And now we are ready to begin bead weaving. Now, like I said, we're going to be picking up the first and second row. So for this particular pattern, you're picking up 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the gold. And you can go ahead and slide that down. And we're picking up 1 black, 1 of your brown amber, 1 of your sort of reddish amber that you'll have. Go ahead and slide that down. And now we're going to pick up another 5 gold. And just go ahead and slide that down. 1 black, 1 brown, 1 amber, slide that down, and 5 more gold, and 1 black, 1 brown, and 1 amber, slide that down, and now we'll be picking up 4 gold beads. 2, I have a little static on my beads, and 4. Okay, So just really quick, before we move on, I'm just going to go back and just double check and make sure that I have picked up the appropriate number of beads. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the gold, a black, a brown, an amber, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a black, a brown, an amber, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, black, brown, amber, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, we are looking good. We are in business. All right, so now sort of taking it in your hand, what you're gonna do is you're gonna turn your thread and go back the other way. So for our third row, we're gonna start by picking up 1 gold bead, and you're gonna skip over that first gold bead and go into the second gold bead. And what's gonna happen is you're gonna create a little T at the top there. Let me just wiggle that down and then I'll move my fingers out of the way. There we go. So you have a little T working. And now we have another gold bead, and you're going to skip over the first bead that you have there and going into the next bead. And you're going to start to create this little kind of zipper effect. And you'll start to have up beads and down beads. And this first row, or these first 3 rows, I should say, are actually the most difficult, but once you get the structure set, you'll be good to go. All right, so this is what our beadwork looks like so far. So now we're going to pick up an amber bead, and we're going to be skipping over the first one there and going into that brown bead right there. And you'll just continue this all the way along your pattern, but I'll stay with you for these first few rows. So again, we're going to be skipping over the black bead, adding a black bead, and going through the next gold bead. And now we're going to be picking up a gold bead, skipping over 1 gold bead, going into the next one. And you'll start to see how the structure starts to lay out there. And you want to keep good tension. You notice I'm kind of pulling and adjusting as needed. Picking up another gold bead, skipping a gold bead, going into the next one. Picking up an amber bead, skipping over that amber bead, and going into the next one there. Picking up a black bead, skipping over that black bead, going into that next gold bead. Pick up a gold bead, skip over, and go into the next. Picking up another gold bead, skipping over a gold bead, going into the next one. There we go. Picking up an amber bead, skipping over, going into the next one. And we're getting towards the end here, so pick up a black bead. Don't poke yourself with your needle. Anyone who's done bead weaving has definitely poked themselves at least a time or two. All right, picking up a gold bead, going into that next one there. And we're getting towards the end. So pick up another gold bead and go into that last gold bead. Now don't forget that amber bead that we have there, that's just our stopper bead, so we'll end up taking that off a little bit later, but go ahead and leave it on there for now. And so this is the structure that you should have in your bead weaving thus far. So this is the first 3 rows. So now what we're going to do, let me draw your attention over to the pattern here again. What we're going to do is we're going to start to add the next row. So our thread is coming out this bead here, so we're going to start by adding this bead, and then you weave through, add another, weave through, add another. So let me show you on the bracelet now what that looks like. So those first 2 beads were gold, so I'm just going to pick up a gold bead, And now you can see that it's much easier to just go right through that up bead. And now pick up another gold bead. And all you're doing is just following the pattern. And pick up one more gold bead. And go into that black bead. Now following my pattern, I'm going to pick up one of the brown beads. And go into the amber bead. There we go. And I have a gold. And another gold. And you're just going straight into those nice beads. You're going straight into those nice beads that are sitting up for you. And there's a brown bead. And you can see my bead weaving is curving just a little bit. That's due to my tension. And as you can kind of weave further down, it'll start to even itself out. Peyote is a really nice, tight stitch. So what I recommend is just taking your time and just securing your work and just sort of adjusting as you need to. You don't want it to be too tight because you want it to be able to curve around your wrist, but you don't want it to be too loose so that it's floppy. All right, so I'm getting towards the end here, adding those last couple. Here we go. And now, very simply, I'm coming out that last bead there, and all I'm going to do is turn around and go back the other way with the appropriate beads in your pattern. For me, mine is gold. There we go. And now I do 2 gold for this one, and then I have an amber bead. All right, so I'm going to continue to weave, and in a few moments I'll be back to show you how to tie off and add new thread. So that's something that you can do whenever you're ready at any point during the pattern. So I will see you back here in just a few moments. So you can see that I've woven just a little bit more. You might be further along in your pattern, and like I said, you can use this technique wherever you are. You may need to do this several times as you're making this bracelet, depending on how long you want your threads to be. So I have about 6 to 8 inches left on my thread, and I'm coming out and I'm actually in the middle of a row. So you just want to kind of clock where you're coming out and just remember that. But the basic technique is go ahead and take your needle, and you're going to go down and through so that you catch the thread that is underneath the bead. Go. All right, so I've caught that thread. So go ahead and put your needle through there and create a little loop, and then take your needle, catch the loop, and then you're just going to pull down and create a little knot there. And now to weave in the thread, go ahead and just weave down into the bracelet. And you can actually turn your thread around, and you just want to keep going with the thread path there. And you'll notice that little thread will just sort of lock in there and you won't see it anymore. And now all I'm going to do is just kind of turn it around and just go through a few adjacent beads just to get those tails nice and locked in there. And I'll do one more. There we go. So that is it. That is how to tie off your first length of thread. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to use the thread zap. So you just remove the safety and press it up, and you just wait a few moments for it to heat up there. And now you just take it and pull tight towards your bracelet there. And your thread will just naturally zap right off. So it's nice and clean. So I'm just going to go ahead and make sure you put your safety back on. and set that aside. I'm going to undo my needle. I'm going to show you how to add on a new piece of thread. Now go ahead and snip. And just thread your needle one more time. There we are. Now, do you remember where I was coming out? You can kind of see in the pattern that I need to come out so that I can add that bead. So I'm going to move a few beads back here so that I can get my thread in there. But one of the things that I like to do to make it secure is if I had my needle going this way, I want to add thread going this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down a couple rows below and a couple behind, and I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go through in the opposite direction. And you can pull until you have a tail. You'll just end up zapping this off, so you don't need to worry about that. So I'm coming out that amber bead right there, if you can kind of see. I know it might be a little difficult to see there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to weave and try to get all the way up to the top. And now I'm going to go back through these two black beads here. And sometimes you can go through two beads at once, but definitely don't force it. Don't forget these are glass beads, so you definitely don't want to crack them. And go through that next one. And now I'm going to do the same thing that I did as I was tying off, is I'm going to go behind and catch that thread, go through, make myself a little loop, and tie off the thread. And now I'm just going to follow that thread path down through the next amber bead here. I'm sorry, that's a brown bead. There we go. And up through the black bead that's there. And if you remember, we were coming out of this black bead here. And now I am all set to add a new bead. So I'm going to continue with my pattern just as I did before. And if you're worried and you might think that's not secure enough, go ahead and give a little tug. Mine is nice and secure, but also if at this point you want to do this, you can create another knot to add a little extra security if you like, but go ahead and continue weaving your bracelet, tying off and adding new thread when you need to, and I'll be back to show you how to finish off your bracelet. Don't forget, your clasp will add about 3/4 of an inch to your overall length. So keep that in mind as you weave your bracelet. All right, so now we're ready to attach the clasp. Now for your particular length of your peyote strip here, you may have completed the pattern, but in case you cut it off a little bit early, and that's okay because these are geometric patterns meant to be sized out as the length that you need, just make sure that your threads are coming out opposite ends. And that means that you'll have a down bead and an up bead, and then a down bead and an up bead. So that's what you'll need to attach your clasp so that it'll fit together properly. So if your strip looks like this, we are ready to go. So the first thing is that we are going to take our thread and go around and create a little thread bridge going through the bead that is just below where your thread is coming out. And you're just going to follow that thread path and work your way up. So go to the next up bead and go through the next bead there. And you'll be coming out the very second up bead of that top row. And then we're just going to go down one and up one. And now we're ready to attach our clasp. So go ahead and separate your clasp, and we're going to just make sure that our clasp is facing the right way so that when we do both sides, our clasp will attach properly. So go ahead and get ready to attach your clasp. Okay, so the instructions that come with your kit instruct you to do 4 beads, and while that is correct, I am going to show you an alternative, And that's very simply adding 5 beads. It's exactly the same pattern and exactly the same thread path. It just gives you a little bit looser of a clasp depending on how you want to wear it. So just go ahead and string on 5 of your main color beads. For this one, it's going to be the gold. And you're going to pick up your clasp and just go around the front. And you'll see that I'm going to kind of come through the back with my needle there. And I'm going through the 4th up bead that's right there. And I'm going to pull that together. And the first one is a little difficult because your clasp will kind of twist on you. So you just want to make sure that it is oriented the correct way. So this should be your first thread pass. And now just take your needle and you're going to go down through the adjacent bead and up through the next bead. So this is what you should look like now. So you're coming out that 5th up bead, and now we're ready to do another loop. So again, pick up 5 of your seed beads, going through the top and around, go, and coming through the back there. I'm just going to go through that next up bead. To attach the clasp, you're going to always be working with those up beads, and you're going to just go down through the next down bead and up through the next up bead, making sure not to crisscross your thread as you work. So you can see that's my 2nd loop, and now I'm ready to do my 3rd, and it's just repetitive at this point. So you just pick up 5 beads, go through the top, and go through the next up bead. And you can kind of see that I'm having to sort of play with my tension as I'm working. What is ideal is that once we're done here, you'll see that I'll retrace this whole thread path just to give that clasp some extra security. So don't worry too much about your tension on this first one. Just kind of adjust with your fingers as you go. You'll see it kind of tighten up every time I give it a little tug. All right, repeating that again. Let's pick up 5 more seed beads. And you always want to be putting your loop through the same way so that you get that nice sort of spiral effect on your loops. There we go. Down through the down bead. And up through the up bead. Five more gold seed beads. And if you've gotten one of the other patterns, for the Miami, you're going to be using your teal seed beads. And for the white cherry blossom, the white, and the blue cherry blossom, the blue. You can always switch that up for your desire, but that I think looks the cleanest to sort of focus on using your main color. All right, so now I'm going into the last part here. So all I want to do is turn my thread around one more time. And to do this, you're just kind of following your little thread path. And now I'm just going to go down one bead just to turn it around, up again, and one more time to get my thread back to retracing my steps on those loops. So now just take your needle and just kind of go up through your beads. Sometimes you can catch 2 at a time. Sometimes it's just 1. So just take your time and be patient. You're just backtracking your thread just to give your clasp extra security. That way it won't fall off, or, you know, you're kind of giving your thread a little extra boost. All right, so I'm just going to repeat this very quickly. As you're doing this step, you might need to kind of flip your work back and forth just so that you can get your thread through there. And you can see that sometimes I'm skipping over and doing 2 beads at a time. Don't try to force your needle in there. If it happens, it happens. If not, just let it go and just do 1 at a time. I know it's more tedious, but you definitely don't want to break a bead because then you kind of have to go back through and fix your beadwork. And that's not fun either. So as we're getting close to the end here, this is the same process that you're going to repeat on the other side. And because of the way that your thread is coming out, it is an exact replication. But I do want to let you know that depending on how you want your piece to look, you can have the loops sort of all going the same direction, or you can kind of alternate it. And I'm going to show you what that looks like on my finished piece here in just a moment. All right, so now I'm coming back through the last couple of beads in my loop here. I'm going to go through that last bead, which is that first up bead that we came through, so it's the 3rd bead there. I'm going to go down and I'm going to tie off my thread by just taking my needle, same as we did before, kind of going through the back of that, catching that thread, and making sure to not catch your clasp. You're just going to want to create a nice little loop, making sure that your tail is long enough there. Go. And just weaving down and through. There we go. All right. And just one more. I think we are all tied off and good. You can always add a few more knots if you want it to be more secure, but that is how to add the clasp. And now you can just take your thread zap or your snips and just zap off your tail there. There we go. Always put your safety back on. And now you're just going to repeat that on the other side, but I want to show you on my finished piece here that we have the loops sort of going in opposite directions so that when you close it, you get a really nice sort of effect of all the loops sort of coming downwards. So while it is opposite, you just have to flip your beadwork and just be aware of how you're doing your loops. Now you can do it both the same way. It just depends on, are you going back through the loops or down through the loops? But you'll achieve the same effect. And you will attach your clasp and be all set to go and wear your beautiful peyote bracelet. I hope you enjoyed this video. You can find more kits and all of these beautiful patterns at beadaholique.com.